Good afternoon, Dr. Norton here with part 2 of the Harry Potter lectures. In my last lecture, I reviewed some of the connections between Harry Potter and Greek mythology, the tension between the physical and the spiritual, and the way in which Rowling's book connects with some archetypes. I hope you had a chance to look at the archetype page. I linked to the Blackboard site. Identifying archetypes can be a fun exercise. I think it can be one way of understanding what an author is trying to set up and one way of analyzing characters and situations in a piece of literature. In this lecture, I'd like to go after this character of Harry Potter. I find it pretty fascinating the way Rowling has set this up. So Harry Potter is an orphan, cut off from his family, yet not cut off from his people. This is going to provide us with some pretty interesting comparisons with Tarzan of the Apes. I'm looking forward to talking about that in a couple weeks. Tarzan of the Apes is not cut off from his people. Oh, good. Here we go. The young Harry Potter. Hello, little one. I was going to put a lightning bolt on his forehead for this lecture today, but my wife wouldn't let me. We have a pen here. Try it. No, better not. Okay, anyway. So Tarzan of the Apes is cut off from his people and cut off from his whole society. He begins thinking that he's an ape, and so his discovery is more of his own humanity. But it's a very similar discovery, and I'm looking, like I said, looking forward to you seeing some cool connections there too, and we can talk about that in a couple weeks. So Harry Potter, cut off from his family, but not cut off from his people. Actually, he is raised, you might say, by the faculty at Hogwarts. Say hello, Sheffield. Hello. He is raised and cared for by a community that understands him and knows what he is. That's an interesting facet in this text. They know more about him than he knows. And his coming of age is really a wonderful part of the novel's development. A Bildungsroman is what that's called, a coming of age tale, where he is discovering who he is and coming to age, coming into maturity and discovering what he has and how he's made and who he is exactly. Harry Potter doesn't understand why strange things happen to him. From the disappearance of the glass in front of the boa constrictor at the zoo, when he's in that moment of emotional turmoil and pushed down by Dudley, and the glass disappears, he doesn't understand why that happens. To his own flight onto the school roof when Dudley and his gang of bullies are chasing him. All of a sudden he's up on the chimney of the roof of the school and he gets in trouble, but he doesn't understand how he got there. And then even the moment where Harry jumps onto his broomstick in his first flying class. In these moments, our unsuspecting hero realizes a new talent, a latent talent you might call it. Something is uncovered that has been dormant inside of him. And he achieves a desire, saves a friend, or escapes a calamity. To use the language of archetype, Harry discovers innate wisdom, is what we call that, or what we call that in archetypal language. I mean, even with the idea of the stages of the hero, you probably saw this on the archetype page, but I find this kind of fascinating as well. On the stages of a hero, the archetypal stages of a hero. First stage is departure. The hero is called to an adventure, although he is reluctant to accept. How reluctant is Harry to accept his calling? I mean, he's pretty excited to get away from the Dursleys, but there is a certain reluctance to his stepping forward. We even see that in the train station as he's going forward to the wall. Do I really run into the wall? And he blasts through to Hogwarts Express and so forth, and he's off to Hogwarts. But there is a certain reluctance to it, right? And yet he is very, very much called to this adventure. All the owls flying in. I think that's a very creative way of calling a hero. The owls flying in, and the letters just pouring down the chimney. Hagrid finding the family out on that little island out on the sea. His calling is strong, and he cannot really escape it in a sense. It's not he who is running from the calling. We might say in some ways a hero that is reluctant might be like a Jonah figure in a sense, right? Who's running from his calling. In no way is Harry like that. He's not a Jonah figure, but he is being pulled away from his calling by the Dursleys, right? The Muggles who are trying to control him and keep him in more of a physical realm and to deny this spiritual realm, this other world of magic. They want to keep things on a singular plane, a flat plane, a one-dimensional lifestyle they want to keep and maintain. You know, in some ways, I don't know if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, but hobbits, by and large, Tolkien says, do not like adventures. These things are inappropriate for people to engage in. And obviously in Lord of the Rings, originally it's Bilbo Baggins who heads out as a hobbit on an adventure, which hobbits just don't do. And he's seen as extraordinary and looked down upon in many ways by these other hobbits who are very much cast in this kind of muggle, or muggles are kind of cast in that form in some ways. So you have that connection there, and then into Lord of the Rings with Frodo, and Frodo is also this similar kind of a character that takes on the role of his uncle Bilbo, and inherits that sense of adventure that is very much contrary to the nature of a hobbit, and so here we have a similar kind of thing going on with Harry. That Harry, kind of like Frodo, inheriting this magic from his parents, but not understanding it. Why do I want to do these things? Why am I having dreams about flying motorcycles? Why are glass walls disappearing? Why am I flying onto a roof? In a very similar way, Frodo in Lord of the Rings doesn't understand why he's doing what he's doing, why he's driven to do what he ends up doing in Lord of the Rings. So the similar kind of hero journey that Rawlings creates here. You want to take a look again? You want to talk to my students? Say, hello, students. Say, hello, students. Hello. No waving? Wave. Try a little wave. Say, hello. Hello. Can you wave? Bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. There you go. See that right there? Bye-bye. This isn't no common muggle right here, man. This guy's got some serious powers. Go ahead. Show him. There you go. Do it. Do the magic. Right there. Do the magic. Bye-bye. There it is. There it is. Boom. Nice job. Second part of... Oh, wow. Putting a little extra heat into it. Careful. Might move some things. Second part of the hero's journey is the initiation. The hero crosses a threshold into a new, more dangerous world, gaining a more mature perspective. At what point does Harry do this? He comes to the threshold of a new, more dangerous world, obviously by going to Hogwarts, right? That's where he does it. Yeah, you know it too. Yeah, and it's more dangerous because Voldemort is there, right? And there's other people like the guy that he hates more than Dudley. Oh, Malfoy. This guy's far worse than Dudley and far more of an antagonistic force. And so he crosses the threshold. A beautiful threshold, right? I love that scene. It's great in the movie, too. I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but if you've already read the book now, I'd suggest picking up the movie, too. But walking through the wall in the train station to this train station he needs to go to the Hogwarts Express, which is in between stations 9 and 10. So he goes into the wall. And so this is an amazing departure or a crossing of a threshold. Yeah, what do you think? You want to cross a threshold? You need to cross a threshold into some sleepy time. That's what you need. Rubbing your eyes. Stage 3. Oops. Come on back. Stage 3. The Road of Trials. The Road of Trials. The hero is given supernatural aid. He endures a test of strength, resourcefulness, and endurance. You're trying to steal the show, aren't you? You're trying to steal the show? You're trying to steal the show, man. This is my show. This is my movie. This is not your movie. You're not teaching. I am right here. This is my show. So the hero's given a supernatural aid. Obviously, we see supernatural aid throughout this story. But I think one of the key ones is Dumbledore's granting of Harry of that invisibility cloak. That is supernatural aid in some ways, right? Even first, the Nimbus 2000 can be seen as other supernatural aid, right? All of a sudden, he gets aid. And how does that happen? Someone sends him the Nimbus 2000, and so that comes from McGonagall, right? Good boy. Good kiss. Comes from McGonagall, Professor McGonagall, who, as you learned last time, is perhaps Athena, right? She aids him with supernatural aid. I mentioned Dumbledore with the invisibility cloak and so forth. He endures tests of strength, starting from an early time in the story with helping find the Remembrall, and I guess getting the Remembrall for Neville, supernatural aid there. He endures that test of strength and resourcefulness and endurance. Oh, you want to get down? Okay, no problem. There you go. Go see the puppy. The fourth one is the innermost cave. The hero descends into the innermost cave, an underworld, or some other place of great trial. Sometimes this place, I'm just reading the sheet that I gave you guys. Sometimes this place can be within a hero's own mind. Because of this trial, the hero is reborn in some way, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Through this experience, the hero changes internally. Through this experience, often, the hero gains something that he will use later on. Okay, now, what is it? Do you remember what this is? What would you say the innermost cave is? This is where I wish we could actually talk about this stuff, in dialogue in person. But nonetheless, this is the next best thing. The innermost cave, I would say in the Harry Potter book, I would say in this one, it's his addiction to the mirror. He gets to the mirror, and that really could be the end of him. He gets addicted to that mirror, and he just wants to go. And it's very sad. That's a very sad part of the book, isn't it? Where he sees what he wants to see, and that's what the hero does. Or not the hero. That's what whenever someone stands in front of the mirror, they see what they want to see most of all in life, right? And so he sees his parents, his family. He sees connection to his family. That's what he most desires in life. And he goes and he wants to spend hours and hours in front of it. But he is helped by Dumbledore, who catches him there and says, I'm going to move that. And in some ways, I think Harry is helped by Dumbledore to escape that place, that innermost cave. And then through that, Dumbledore's education of Harry, through that, Dumbledore is very much a mentor archetype, right? The old, wise sage. This is pretty cute here. Check this out. It's pretty funny. See a little battle going on here between dog and boy. He's crawling over the dog. It's pretty good. Dog has healthy fear of boy, because boy is wielding a spoon. What you got there, man? Oh, yeah. Got a spoon, man. That could do some damage to the dog. The dog knows it. All right. A young hero, Sheffield. So Dumbledore really helps educate him, and he tells him, what you see in the mirror is what you most desire. And we see Harry using that information. He uses his experience in the cave to defeat Voldemort later on at the end of the book, right? Where Quirrell is standing in front of the mirror, and he pulls Harry in front, and Harry goes in front of the mirror and sees himself getting the stone. And he knows it's going to happen, so he can take it elsewhere. Obviously, Dumbledore helps in that process as well by putting some tricks into the mirror, but that's definitely the innermost cave sequence in this text, which is pretty cool. Stage 5, the return and reintegration with society. Well, the hero uses his new wisdom to restore fertility and order to the land. How does this happen? Well, obviously we see this as he returns to Gryffindor, and they win the House Cup. This is his return and reintegration into society, his reintegration into the house that he has been put a part of. So, how does Harry compare to the protagonists in Shakespeare's The Tempest? That's Prospero, right? Prospero, like Harry, discovers supernatural benevolence, supernatural power, that is, when he is cast off on the ship alone with his infant child, and without a sail. I was going to pull up my infant child, he might scream. He is sent out there without sail, without rudder, without anything by which to steer the vessel. So he's really sent off to die on the sea. And it's made very clear that Prospero has no way, even his own magic is not going to do it. So in some ways you have Prospero and you have Harry. Very similar characters in terms of the magical components here. The magical or supernatural, spiritual realm that comes to his aid. Right? Harry is found out. He's known to be with these muggles, the Dursleys, but he's guided and then finally rescued from them when the time was right and brought to a place of education, brought to a place of safety. Same thing happens with Prospero, right? Prospero's put out to sea, he's rescued by, as he calls it, Providence Divine, and brought to the island. On the island, again, he discovers how to use his powers, his magical powers, for good. Prospero, in some ways, has learned that the dark arts are not for his own pleasure, but rather he practices magic on the island for a different purpose than he'd ever had before. It was for the betterment of the community, for the protection of others. And Harry Potter, it's the same exact thing, right? His discovery of magical powers is different than Prospero in some ways, but the way that each are taught to handle their magic is very similar. Even at the end of Harry Potter, where he says, they're not allowed to use magic at home or around muggles. In some ways, that's Prospero. Before he goes home, what does he do? He buries the staff deep into the sea, and he gives up his cloaks, and he no longer will take that magic back with him. And so he re-enters society in a similar kind of way that Harry does at the end of this text. I got a little muggle on the floor here. How does Harry compare to the protagonist in Marlowe's Dr. Faustus? Dr. Faustus discovers magic and gives his soul to the Dark Lord, Voldemort, right? Or Satan, it would be in this one, Beelzebub. Faustus becomes addicted to the power, and his thirst cannot be satiated. Could it be that Harry's moment of testing comes when he has his hat on? Right when he gets to Hogwarts, they put the hat on his head to decide which house he's going to go to. Could it be that it's at that moment that he chooses the good over evil? At that moment that he says, all the power in the world, it's not worth it because there's an emptiness in the evil. I don't want to be a part of Slytherin. I want to be a part of Gryffindor. And in some ways, that's kind of his Dr. Faustus moment. He has a moment, and even the hat says, the things that you'll be able to do in Slytherin, the power you'll be able to have is greater in some ways. But what does that mean, greater power? What is greater power and authority? What does that mean for us? Is that always better? Is more always better? And that's the thing that Harry wrestles with, right? Is it just pure power that he wants? Faustus is addicted, and Harry begs, actually. He begs to be put into Gryffindor, right? Even against the kind of the tempting of the hat itself. What else might it be that causes Harry to choose Gryffindor over Slytherin? I think that's a good question to ask. Excuse me. In Harry's confrontation with Voldemort at the end of the book, Voldemort tempts Harry with greater powers again. That's another point, another Dr. Faustus moment. Why does Harry decline that power? Why does he decline this chance to join up with Voldemort and have more power? There is something operating in Harry that allows him to recognize evil for what it is, empty and unsatisfying. That same thing was not operating in Dr. Faustus. The image of evil we have in the text is found in this character Voldemort, right? A desperate, clawing ghost of a creature who must depend upon the service of others to achieve his ends. This is what evil has done to him. It has emptied him out. It has emptied his very soul and turned him into a clawing, desperate creature. And Harry's able to see that. That raw power leads to the emptying of the soul. That power used only for personal gain leads to the emptying of the soul. And we can take that into many different contexts, even in our own lives. How much of our own desire for power and personal fulfillment and personal gratification, what does that do to our very soul? And the Bible talks about how we're made to give. We're made to sacrifice. And when we don't do that, our own soul is deprived and becomes emaciated and starved in many ways. We starve ourselves by simply gratifying ourselves. There's a bit of irony there. And we see that in the text. You see this Voldemort character, he's feeding himself, he wants to gratify himself, and what happens through that process? He's empty of everything. He becomes a shell of a man, a mere ghost or creature without a personality even. Those who invite Voldemort into their bodies, Quirrell in this text, do so for the promise of power, for the promise of unlimited power. And like Dr. Faustus, that's really our Dr. Faustus character in this, isn't it? Quirrell is our Dr. Faustus character. Interesting that he's a professor, that he is one with great knowledge and power already, and he wants more, and so Voldemort offers that to him. And so that's kind of our Dr. Faustus moment here. But it is Quirrell, in some ways, Professor Quirrell, who takes the place Harry was offered. And it is Quirrell who takes the role of the damned Dr. Faustus. All right, there's much more to be said here, but I'm going to end it here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can continue to make connections on your own. Use that archetypes page, get into that. That's pretty fun, and that's, again, a nice way to kind of find inroads into different, or into various texts, even the ones we're looking at in this class. And so I might come back to that with Tarzan later on, too. All right, take care.